Welcome to the Real Mother-Daughter Show by Marta and Alexandra, a wonderful collection of experiences in the lives of real mothers and daughters.
Women from all around the globe are invited to share their challenges, successes, and pivotal moments that turned their relationship around.
In this episode, we have the pleasure to interview Kerri Hummingbird. As a soul guide and the host of the Soul Nectar Show, she inspires people to lead their lives wide awake with an authenticity, passion, and purpose that positively impacts others. She catalyzes mind shifts that transform life challenges into gifts of wisdom.
Her newest book, already a #1 international bestseller, is called Love is Fierce: Healing the Mother Wound, and describes the most direct path to spiritual enlightenment. Kerri is here with us to share her journey of understanding her ancestral heritage, releasing all judgments about her mom, and healing her inner mother wound.
The Real Mother-Daughter Show brings inspiring stories that will enrich your heart and soul every single time.
We are your hosts, Marta
And Alexandra,
mother and daughter in life and business,
Europe's leading communication experts for mothers and daughters,
international mentors and speakers, creators of the 7-step pathway to a bonding mother-daughter relationship. Good morning, Kerri, and good afternoon for us. We are extremely happy to have you here and that you took this time to be in this conversation that we are sure since we met you, it's been like so emotional, so deep, so aligned between the three of us. And that's why we are here today. Thank you for being here again and to accept to share your message with the world, because we are sure we need it. Thank you.
I'm grateful to be here, and I'm grateful to be given an opportunity to share the message that's coming through me with everyone here.
Lovely, lovely. And so I believe we can start because we are really having this curiosity to know more about your journey. And we would like that you tell us a little bit more about yourself and this journey as an adult daughter.
Absolutely. Yeah. So in my family, it was always easier for me to talk to my dad. So most of the time, whenever there were family issues, I would go straight to my dad to sort through it with him. And then my dad would help to sort of make some peace in the family. Because whenever I would talk to my mother, we would misunderstand each other. Like I would say something, she would take it totally out of context and then get upset with me. And then we would just have this back and forth where it just seemed like it just got worse and worse and worse. And so it was easier to just go to my dad and be like, hey, let me sort out with you what's going on. And then I can go talk to her about it maybe, or you can talk to her about it, or we can talk to her about it, and then it'll get sorted out. And that went on for my whole life. You know, my dad showed up. He's my stepdad, actually. So he showed up when I was 5. So another interesting aspect is that maybe many women have gone through is that there was a lot of like tumultuousness in my early life, was 0 to 5. And that time of uncertainty with other masculine figures in our lives, like my natural father and then my first stepfather, made it so that my mom and I were very codependent with each other, like very tied up together, and for survival, really. And what that meant was that I wasn't really wanting to rock the boat with my mom. Like I never wanted my mom to be upset with me. I never wanted to say anything that would, kind of provoke her. I always wanted to keep the peace. That's kind of who I've always been. I just wanted to keep the peace. And I was a very sensitive child. So like the slightest bit of criticism could really spin me out and make me like really wounded inside. So that early time, I was just so dependent on my mom from survival point of view. And because she almost was, she was physically harmed in front of me as well. And her life was threatened in front of me. So that made it even more intense. When we met my dad at 5, things started opening up and started getting more playful. But that early conditioning was really strong that I needed to just kind of go along with my mom and I needed to avoid conflict, I thought. And I was just trying to keep the peace. And it's so funny because I just talked to my mom yesterday, and my mom's like, I could never understand how, because my mom is very fierce and she's a rebel and she challenges everything starting from when she was a little kid. She's just like challenges everything. Like, this doesn't feel right. It's not right. I don't like this. I'm going to do this instead. This whole system is ridiculous. Like, she's always been that person.
That's her shield, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's actually like, it's her expression of it. Yeah. And it's actually in her gene keys chart. So we were looking through her gene keys. For anyone who doesn't know, is like a great system for understanding each other. And that's one of the tools that's been brought forth in my relationship with my mother so we can understand each other. But we were talking yesterday and she said, yeah, I never understood why you were like, how I could be so like such a rebel and try to empower you and like give you all the tools to like stand up strong and have a, and say what you need to say. And then you were just so subservient, like you wouldn't, you know, you're like afraid. And it's because I have a different chart and my chart is about peace, but I needed my mom. So we'll go into that in more depth, but it's powerful to realize like that people are designed certain ways and then we're matched up with them because we have our own soul's curriculum and our own lessons that we need to learn. And I had my own lessons to learn from my mom's fierceness. And I was wanting to be so gentle all the time, right? And I was really uncomfortable with fierceness because anger was scary because the man was angry in our house and he would beat my mother. So that was, I didn't want to be angry. I was disavowing anger because I didn't want to be anything like him because he was trying to hurt my mom. So like, I would never want to be angry because that person was bad. You know, so there's a lot of programming and things, but flash forward to, we always let my dad handle things for that reason, you know, because I never wanted to rock the boat. My mom was always rocking the boat and wanted me to be more outspoken. And then my dad passed away 3 years ago. And all of a sudden our bridge was gone.
And
Big
all realization.
Yeah, like here's the man who helped us. He was our interpreter and he's gone. And and the whole family basically split into two. So there was those that went with my mom and there were those that went with me. And when there was that reluctantly went with me and were angry at me because they felt I had caused some drama to make that happen. So there was like a lot of family pain. And my mom and I were just at odds. And I went through this really painful experience of not having my family, like being outcast, being alone, being separated, being the black sheep. Funny enough, my mom had gone through all of those things in her life when she left her family, and she had told her mother, I don't believe in all this thing you're doing. It's not congruent, you know, so she had found her power in that, and I needed to find mine through that separation. So that's just a nugget. That's an overview of like what's happened. And I started writing this book in the wake of my dad's passing. I started writing Love is Fierce, Healing the Mother Wound, because what I wanted more than anything was to have my family back. Exactly. And I wanted to do it on new terms, on my terms, like with me being a powerful person of my own right.
Yeah, and definitely you have worked a lot on this sense to find yourself and to be connected and to be able to go on this or do this step to regain your family. And I mean, this is something powerful.
And I mean, I think you realize that we were looking at each other at some points because it's just so similar to my mom's story. It's and incredible. I think, you know, we can leave this to another conversation. It's not the time and space, but
Yeah.
It's and that's what we're bringing this message, right, of healing the mother wound, because otherwise we unconsciously repeat these patterns through generations. And I mean, in a different dynamic, but somewhat the same, you know, you being so fragile in my words, you know, and she being so fierce, and each one with their own coping mechanisms. I love to hear these stories because you see a lot of similarities to other people, and that's why we bring this message to thousands of women listening to us right now, because this needs to be heard. And well, let's continue. So if I was to ask, what do you believe has made your mother-daughter relationship so challenging? What would you say? I mean, you've shared bits here and there, but if you could, um, you know, let us more through your story in that aspect.
You know, I think it's a combination of factors because it's not just one thing. I think that it's ancestral dynamics between women, which is really, I talk about that in the book, in terms of how women have been controlled and made into property and subjugated and mistreated for thousands of years. That is part of the psychology that makes it hard for women to stand in their own true essence, their own true power, and to speak freely. And so, because we have that block to our trueness, our authenticity, it makes it hard for any relationships to unfold in a healthy way. So that is what we're rewiring now on the planet at this time, is to decondition ourselves from the ancestral inheritance, and not to blame our ancestors at all, because they, you know, we went through a human evolutionary cycle. We need to understand those things. We needed to experience it. And now we're changing directions. So it's really to really understand your ancestral inheritance, and you can see it through the behaviors when you kind of lift out of the woods and to the sky. You know, you can look down and go, oh yeah, that pattern's been repeating for a while. So, but in the woods of it, in the thick of it, it feels oppressive and it feels confusing and it feels like oppositional, and how come we're always at odds with each other? It's a lot of this conditioning around competition, you know, women being conditioned to be competitive with each other, to be jealous of each other, to be controlling and manipulative in order to get our way. You know, it's like when you don't have your own true power and the source of power lies outside of you, you have to try to manipulate things in order to get power. It's unfortunate that women have been domesticated in this way, and it's our chance to learn how to step into our true power, speak from our true place, and then we don't need to do that anymore. We can just be upfront. And you know, the other complexity that comes in here is that women have been shunned for emotional energy. So for you know, probably hundreds of years, there's accounts of women being placed in mental institutions because they were hysterical. But because what? Because they had emotions, because they had emotional swings, because they had fiery passion, because they had grief, because they were expressing the unexpressed in the masculine. They were expressing that flow, that wild feminine that is, you know, part of being human, is having emotions. So that's another thing, you know, we sort of shame ourselves for having emotions because we're not supposed to be that way, and we're supposed to be steady, this like this flat line across humanity, like you know, and if you kind of hang out in the flat line, you're doing it right. You know, there's like,
I don't get too noticed.
yeah. I mean, that's not the human experience. The human, especially if you're emotion centered, which is also why I love the gene keys, because I looked at my chart and I'm like, emotion centered. Ah, there you go. That explains it. So, you know, I'm not broken. I'm doing my design. I'm actually here to open up emotions as like, okay, you know, as healthy.
You're being
So
the truest you can be.
yeah. But it's kind of like when we're so afraid of ourselves, isn't it hard for us to trust ourselves? And when it's hard to trust ourselves, isn't it hard to misunderstand other people if we don't understand ourselves? I think that's really like what's at the heart of a lot of these misunderstandings between mothers and daughters, is this discomfort of not actually being yourself because of all these other societal expectations, and not having a voice, you know, and being told, oh, just, you know, look pretty, but don't say anything.
Be the good girl, right?
Yeah. Be the good girl. Like if you're the, so there's all these stereotypes, and one of them is the good daughter, and the good daughter is the one that does the patriarchal way. Like whatever the father figure says, the good daughter does it, and she's like the golden child. She's perfect. So I fell into that because I had an awesome dad who was very uplifting. He would uplift me because he wanted me to stand in my power. But then that created awkward dynamics between my mother and I, right? Because now who's the matriarch and who's got power and who's in charge? And when that started happening, when I started getting into my teens, we were fine when I was younger. But in the teens, you start to rebel. That's natural to rebel. It's by design that evolution requires teenagers to rebel so that we can chart the new course, so we can push consciousness forward. And when I started doing that, my mom got threatened.
And yes, I think this is when you really get to know yourself. It's the only way that you get to know how to. It's not even to deal with the atmosphere. It's really how to live fully, and really because you understand yourself and you are able to cope or to understand others. I believe it's not to cope. Correct. Yeah. It's not to cope. It's really to go, to understand how life is, not feeling guilty, not feeling apart from the world, not feeling like, are you strange? No, you're just your true self. And I would like anyway to ask you, you said when your father died, that was I guess the turning moment with your mom. How did you go through then to get closer to her and to really find this defined moment to get connected and to see, okay, this is my moment? Because I believe that was your moment. To say,
it was my moment when
no more lies here or whatever.
Let's get this clear. Yes.
Yeah. Because my dad was the peacekeeper, so he was this big mountain of peace, and then he left, and then there was no peace. So I knew deep inside, and because also I can communicate with my dad beyond the veil, because I have that gift of intuition that got awoken in me about a dozen years ago. So I was communicating with him, and I knew that it was my invitation to create the peace. So if it's me to create the peace through the conflict, not to avoid the conflict, but to really look at it, like, how did this get started? How am I contributing to this? So take responsibility for it. So I started writing the Love is Fierce book, Healing the Mother Wound, and I started going through and noticing things where I was contributing to the suffering in our relationship. And one of the biggest ahas for me in working with my mentors was, oh my goodness, I'm created a story in my mind about my mom that may or may not be true, but that is totally keeping this argument in place.
Yes.
And while I choose to see her that way, nothing is going to get resolved. So if I want a new outcome, I've got to paint this with a new brush. I've got to see this in a totally new way that gives her space to be who she actually is, not who I projected that she was.
Yeah, that was this turning moment.
Yeah, really. That's what we like. It happens to a lot of women, in a later age, where we've been thinking about our daughter or our mother in a certain way. As you say, we've built this story about this other person, and that's how we react or project or even deal with the dynamic or the communication between each other. And it's that awareness of ourselves, of how, okay, I need to change this dynamic, otherwise we're not going anywhere. And as you say, I loved how you said it, like, a story that it might or might not be true. So let's just clear this out, right?
Yeah. And what was interesting is that I didn't do that with her. So I did that on my own, just for anyone who's confused about that. My mom wasn't speaking to me, and a good part of my family was not speaking to me. So I was continuing along my purpose of being a messenger and, doing my spiritual work, growing my groups and all of that. And this was a big focus of my life for like basically 2.5 years, was the in-depth exploration of my own psychology around how did our relationship get this way? And not only that, but also looking at myself as a mother And like, how had I been with my sons? And so I was the mother in the middle. I was looking both directions and going, wow, what is this that's just happened? And how can I bring love and healing to this so that it's in right relationship? And what does right relationship even look like in this dynamic? So I was doing that work on my own. And what was happening behind the scenes with my mom, I now know, is that she was experiencing a lot of grief because my dad had passed away. She was looking to find her own roots in her own life because my dad had passed away, and he was really her rock and her total focus because he had a lot of health challenges for many, many years. And so her total attention was on him for most of her existence. So when he was gone, it was like, okay, what now? And she just kept being called forth to resolve the conflict as well. As it turns out, both of us have the pearl of peace in our gene keys charts. So we're both here to create peace and that's our function. So she kept being called forth to create peace, create peace. And the mess of the family was just like she kept trying to like whittle away at pieces of it to bring it back together again. And she just started noticing. And so for her own side, she was doing her own work on, is this really what I want to lead as a family? Because now that she's the matriarch, well, what does she want her family to look like?
Exactly.
And she was getting called up to answer all those questions by spirit. So when at one point I finally succeeded in erasing my chart, because I thought, you know, like my story of my mom, because I was like, I'm going to release this book. The book was done. I'm going to release this book and my family is still not healed.
We have it
I
here.
I'm going to look like such a fake, you know, like who's going to listen to me? You know, when I can't even heal my own family. Like, that's ridiculous. No one's going to listen. So I was starting to get anxious because I had a long window. I had like 4 months where I finished the book. I gave it to my mom. I sent it to her over email. I said, listen, here's the book I'm going to publish. I want you to know what's in it before I publish it. I don't want you to be blindsided. And I'm not bashing you. If you read the first section, you'll see I'm saying you're a warrior of love. I see that now. And it still was like just kind of hanging out unresolved. And I was getting closer and closer to my publication date. And I was like, oh man, my mom is, I'm going to put, and so I had to just accept that I'm publishing this as my knowledge, as my wisdom, as my spirit message. Whether or not she comes along, it's not about the result. It's about what's the transformation inside me for doing this work. And is the transformation valid if she never said yes? Absolutely. It stands by itself. And that was the lesson my guides were trying to show me. Like, it's not about her coming back. It's about you knowing yourself and healing yourself. And it's icing on the cake if she decides to come back. Well, she did.
Exactly.
She decided to
I
come
think
back.
this is exactly, you did it from your heart, from all what you felt, everything, and so authentic that it was two ways, or to come back or to keep away. But she did come back, and this is
Because
what
she was
means.
also doing the work. You know?
Exactly.
I mean, I love the clarification, because a lot of people think like, oh my God, mother-daughter relationship, let's work on it. It doesn't mean that you have to do it together. The most important is that you, as a woman, as a mother and a daughter, adult daughter, each one does the inner work that they need to do to clear that energy out of the system and really be able to, as we've been talking, create a different dynamic and harmonize the relationship. Even if you come back and have a nice relationship afterwards, or you just understand that, each one just has their own journey. Exactly.
Yeah, I think it's important that in that inquiry, we have so many good tools now for understanding, like the gene keys, for example, or there's lots of other systems. I just happen to love this one.
We
And
too.
We do.
I mean, I turned to it because I wanted to understand my mom. I was like, for me, this is just how I process. For me, it's easier to get to forgiveness if I can understand. So I looked up her chart and I didn't have her exact birth time, but it was pretty close. So it was mostly right at the time. I have the correct one now. But as I was looking through, I was like, oh my gosh, my mom signed up to do this and that and this other thing. And oh my gosh. And I was like, wow, this is just who she is. So it was like, how can I blame her for being who she meant to be in this lifetime? I can't blame her for being who she was designed to be. She was designed to be that. And I know from my teachers, and they said to me, right from the beginning, when I started my spiritual path, all of my teachers are saying the same thing. You chose your parents. You chose your parents. Stop blaming your parents. You chose them. You chose exactly who they are. And I hated that. I was like, what? Why would I do that? But I did choose it. And so I'm just going to flash forward to like this past Sunday. I was with my mom. We're doing Sunday brunches now, and we've been going down her gene keys chart, and just I was opening up one of her attractor field, and we were looking at that, and I started reading, and it's not really important what it was, except that it touched me deeply because I could see how all the things I resented about my mother were exactly the medicine that she brings to the world. And that actually in this particular gene key, these people who have this often experience people really resenting them and really not liking them and ostracizing them and shunning them and kicking them out of groups because of the gift of this city is to show you your exquisiteness, is to show you your truth, and to get you out of any place that you're being mediocre and you're not being yourself. That's how I grew up. My mom was constantly poking and prodding at me because she has like this like sixth sense about when I'm being false. So it was a tough way to raise up because that's a lot of grit, for my diamonds. But it was for me to really know my authentic truth. And I was just at the table weeping to see it all in print. And my mom just held my hands and she's like, "You've always been the light of my life."
Yeah. And this is beautiful, isn't it?
It's beautiful to hear that. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it was powerful. I was just, we were holding hands and I was just like, "Oh my God, Mom, thank you so much." I was just like, so grateful. Thank you so much for being this. And I know it wasn't easy, and I know it must have been hard to receive your daughter and being so resentful and so like, like get away from me or stop or, but that's what the ego does. The ego inside of us, it's scared. It doesn't like being provoked. It would rather just kind of be comfortable and, stay in a safe zone of mediocre. It wants to stay there. But my mom never let me do that. She's like, "No, my love is so fierce. I'm not going to let you be less than who you are."
And this is maybe what we as women sometimes we don't do. But if we get really in this moment and process that you say, you get to know yourself first to be able to do whatever, helping people, do whatever, giving love, receiving love, everything. You need to get to know yourself. And you did it.
And our families, as you say, our parents and our children are our biggest teachers and our biggest gifts.
Yeah.
And they're there really to show us what we need to work on ourselves and to take us actually to the next level of our evolution. So if we see it from that perspective, like how beautiful is that? So I'm so happy for the moment that you shared with your mom as well this Sunday. And it's, it gives me chills because it's beautiful to see that. And I hope actually that, at some other point we get to share this space with her as well. So we'll see. But
yeah, we'll see. Yeah, there's family dynamics still. Not everybody's all happy hunky dory with this in my family.
It's just the next step. So
we're working to bring the family back together, and and people have to take their time. That's the thing. You have to give things space while you hold the intention, and that's what I did with my mom. I just held the intention of love. I did my work to release my judgments, my projections, and then just left space for her to come to it herself. And and then it's authentic. Then it's not being forced. It's real, it's genuine, it's heart open. And when a person comes to the situation like that again, it's with the decision to let go of the past. Okay, let's We're not going to carry that forward. We're starting over,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to move forward from here rather than drudge up all this past.
Exactly. Totally. This is the only way. You have to let go of all these past. Otherwise, you keep
holding to
holding
it, yeah,
everything.
and then you cannot
Mm-hmm.
really move forward. All right, so I think it opens up perfectly for what have you learned about yourself through the relationship or this experience that you have shared, throughout all these years with your mom.
You know, one of the things I really learned about myself as I saw clearly in my life is my tendency to be mediocre and to want things to be safe and I don't want to rock the boat. I want people to be happy. I want people to stay peaceful. There's like this tendency in me to want peace at all costs, including suppressing myself. And so, what I've really gotten by healing my mother wound is releasing the judgments around being intuitive and knowing what's going on, because I used to deny that I knew anything. And one of the things about my mom is that, she always had such a sharp, little sniffer, like she could sniff out BS, like, there's some BS in here. And and I always, because I shut off, so much of my range of power inside, I often was blindsided by things when my kids were little, because I didn't want to see things. I wanted to just like turn a blind eye and just kind of go and live in my fantasy about that I wanted to create. So a lot of this has been healing that. And of course, motherhood also was challenging me to heal that, because I was seeing my kids and wondering what was going on, and having to lean in to place better boundaries, and having to lean in to get in the face of my kids and be like, hey, what are you doing? What's going on? What's really going on? You're not telling me the whole truth, to get in their face. And that's something that I never wanted to do. I never wanted any kind of aggression, or I guess assertiveness. So that's a part of me that now I am welcoming in. I'm in the process of it. And even as I call in, for this event that is coming up, the Calling All Earth Mamas, like this is growing me as well, to grow my understanding of like, what is an Earth Mama? Like what is, if we're going to be fiercely loving, what is fierce love?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I'm realizing that fierce love sometimes looks like a mama bear. Fierce love sometimes looks like a jaguar. Fierce love sometimes looks like an owl that's like staring you down, like, I'm not sure about you. That is fierce love too, just as much as flowers are fiercely beautiful and gentle and loving and kind. I mean, so there's a range to the feminine that I feel that this is an invitation to heal. Any place where we feel stuck in one persona or one energetic of the feminine, I think that's a programming as well, and I've been looking at how I can undomesticate that within myself and make it okay for me to be saying something that might feel gritty to someone or challenging, or they might get upset and turn off or walk away, and be okay with that, because for that moment, that's what that person needed to hear. And in this moment, they need to go process that and digest it. And it's okay if they need to leave.
Yeah.
So it's like getting okay with people being in conflict. It's okay if I say something that provokes some conflict in people, if that's a productive intention toward their evolution. And so getting more comfortable in that space. That's what I've been working on and noticing in myself. And because I want to get my exquisiteness, my mom didn't do all that work just for me to stay mediocre. So,
Definitely.
Yeah, and I mean, when we enter conflict, because many people actually are scared about it, and just facing it, it doesn't mean the relationship is going to end, or however you want to call it, but that there are things that need to be worked out. And if we say something, sometimes it's not about us, it's really about how the other person is taking it, and that reflection of what they need to work on, and vice versa. So we always say as well that it's a lot about also how you say it, no? Because you can also be very harsh and being still kind in a way, but you making your point. You mentioned the word assertive to do it assertive so that anyway the point gets, across. It's important. And we also say as well, it's not about not having conflict, but how to resolve conflict at the end.
Find solutions.
Yeah.
And it depends on the way that you go through this situation. Because conflict is everywhere and it's always, but how you solve it, that's the key. And I think this is something very important to learn, and from the feminine point of view also. Because that's why you are so afraid to go into conflict, because this feminine power is getting melted and you are not able to tell your truth, isn't it?
I love what you're saying, and I think it is the feminine power that's going to unlock. That's why I'm calling to Earth Mamas, because I really feel that as we embrace the full range of our power, we can dance in between in the moments and be used by spirit, like with the energetic that would be most useful in that moment. Because it's, this idea that we always show up this one way and that is how things get resolved. That's a masculine framework. That obviously doesn't work very well, because we've just had, thousands of years of patriarchy and people are really fighting and having wars. So I don't think that's exactly the answer. I think that we need to maybe embrace some fluidity in how we respond, but the only way to do that is to get comfortable within ourselves and practice. Because I know for myself, and I know for probably every woman listening, the last thing we want to do is create more conflict. So our aim is not, we're actually, most of us are conflict avoidant. So, but we have to lean in to practice speaking up and to practice feeling the space. These are all aspects of the feminine, feeling the whole room, feeling the whole space, being able to be like owl. Like owl can sense the entire forest and knows exactly where the mouse is, right? And swoops down, gets the mouse, and comes back out. It's very clean and effortless. That's where we can be in the feminine. When we have that much awareness in the space, we can be that swift, so we can go right into the source of the conflict, bring love to it with gentleness, with tenderness, and open that thing up. But that requires inner fierceness. In order to decide to do that, that requires a decision to be fierce and aware.
Awareness. You said just it. This is the point.
So after all these wonderful things just shared, we would like to ask you, what would be one thing that you would advise or gift, other women who are listening to us right now, on how to, first of all, take their relationship with themselves to the next level, and consequently as well, the relationship with their moms to the next level?
Yeah, so great. It's really the willingness. It starts with the willingness to heal. It starts with the willingness to have a new dynamic, and also some faith that you can create a whole different outcome with your mother. Like, you can create that, or if you're a mother with your daughter, that is completely possible. And there's this power in working in the unseen spaces between us. When we do our own work, especially when we're mothers and we're biologically, energetically connected to our children for life, then we have this special zone that we can operate in as mother, right? So we can use that benevolently to heal ourselves, right? And then create space to pass that to our children. And because we're all sovereign, and because we're all have free will, that's only ever an invitation energetically for the child or the mother to receive that healing. So we do the work, and then our ancestors can receive it 7 generations forward and back. As we keep doing this work and we honor, our ancestors, we can open up whole new avenues of healing. And I'll offer one practice. This is one practice that I did early on, that I got from my teachers at the Four Winds Light Body School where I studied. They gave us this practice. They said, okay, do an ancestral altar, for your ancestors, right, in general. But then I took that and I was like, you know what, I'm going to do one for my mom, because we were not speaking. We were having all these problems. Even back then, we were always having challenges. I said, okay, I'm just going to make one to my mom because I want to clear this up. So I just made this little birdhouse thing. I put it outside because I didn't want it in the house.
but not
just to be honest,
just having a space.
Now my mom, I put her right in the center of the living room. Like I love my mom. I mean, but I'm comfortable now, right? It's taken a lot of. It has taken a lot of work and a lot of layers, I want to say. So this is not like a snap your fingers and it's done. But
yes, and it is okay to feel like this.
It's okay.
It's the starting point.
That's a boundary,
Yeah, exactly.
So I had to take her and put her. So I made the altar outside under this beautiful tree I have, and I put inside of it. They said, put things on the altar that your mom loves. So I cut out pictures of things that my mom loves. She loves malted milk balls. She loves soap operas. She loves certain authors. So I just took pictures and I laminated it because it was going to be outside, and I put it all in there, and I put a little candle in there. And so I would go every day and light the candle and honor my mom for a few minutes and be like, I gave you all the things you love. I love you so much. Let's make peace. I'm making peace. And the thing is, the peace I was making wasn't with her as a physical being. It was my little girl making peace with her mother on the inside. That's really the secret to this. So the reason you do it is to make peace with your judgments about your mother. So I went out there every day and I did that. And after a while, a few years, that altar worked and we got back together again for a while. And then it didn't work again. So I brought a different altar. I put a different altar inside. And that one, I brought stones in to represent my mom and then another one to represent my dad. And I put my dad in between me and my mom because it was like, if she's going to be in my house, I need to have my dad in between her and me.
We still have few things
there.
So I put my dad there, and then I put a little Palo Santo, to block off the energy. So, I mean, it was just me opening up to really I see now in retrospect, the guides are telling me that it was really me bringing her closer and closer to receive her medicine that she was meant to deliver to me for my evolution. And so I was welcoming this, what felt like extreme negativity, into my space more and more and more and more. And now I see that what it really was the grit that helped me become my diamond. So her medicine is actually what helped me claim myself. And now I'm grateful. So I've crossed over to the other side to where my heart is just literally spills over with gratitude when I'm with my mom. I'm so, so grateful for my mom because I made the journey to receive her medicine fully. Now I can be at peace with my mom.
And it's so important to be in peace because definitely this is what gives you this calmness, serenity. And I think this is worthless. I mean, this is what each human being needs, to be in peace, really.
And allows oneself to stand on your own power.
Exactly.
To then really represent what you've been representing in your book, Love is Fierce.
And it can be so much trust, now my oldest son is living with my mom and going to school. And he calls me up, oh my gosh, Nini, she's terrible. She's this. And and I'm like, I know, sweetie. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now
yep, I know.
Journey.
Yeah, now he's journey, right?
No, he's getting her medicine. And I'm like, yep, I know, honey. Come on over here where you're comfortable. I'll soothe you. I'll comfort you over here. So we have we get to help him grow now into his medicine by playing our roles. So I have a different role for him than she has. So and his heart is opening. His heart is opening. He's actually standing in his power way more up there than he ever did with me because he needed her. He needed someone else, because I'm his big medicine, right? And sometimes it's hard to receive that until you have a little more grit. So he's getting some grit.
Interesting.
And then he will know how to appreciate you a little more.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, Mom. He already is. He's like, Mom, I can't believe you grew up with. Wow. He's like, my mind is just blowing up. I can't believe this. I was like, yep. Now you appreciate me.
Yeah. That's the way we learn every day.
Yeah, and it's a gift to give each other this opportunity to evolve through each other, right? Because we're our best mirrors and our best, as we were just saying, teachers for each other. So,
beautiful.
Kerri, thank you so much for sharing this space with us.
Absolutely. I love this conversation.
Advice is definitely, well, we have the digital copy of your book, but we will, advise every woman out there that is listening to this conversation to get this book. We will be putting, I guess you can purchase it on Amazon. Is that correct?
Yeah, so you can purchase it on Amazon, and I can send you a link that goes to all the Amazon sites to find it.
Yeah, we'll put then the link below this video, and then that's really our advice for every woman listening to us today to start reading this book today, because I mean, it's not just for women; it's also for men, right? I mean, we all have a mother, and we all have a mother wound. So if we clear that out, if we really heal that, we can just allow ourselves. I mean, we'll be evolving and growing throughout our entire life as we are living, right? But as we heal this, it allows us to live, our truest potential and to stand on our own power. So that's what we advise everyone today. And we know that you're having an event coming up soon called Calling All Earth Mamas. And maybe you want to share a little bit about it, and that way people can get excited about joining you very soon.
And joining us, because we will be over there.
Yes.
So, yes.
Oh, I'm so glad you're both coming. I'm so glad. Yes. So my path to healing myself really and finding my inner medicine was through the Andes Mountains and these beautiful indigenous people that live in the Andes Mountains, high up in the mountains, called the Quero. And they have this practice of working with stones and working with energetics to call in Divine Mother, to really call in the earth and to call in her presence and to work with her on a daily basis. They honor her. They have ceremonies where they honor her and rituals where they bring in what they call Ayne, Ayne, which is right relationship. And we could all use some right relationship here in the West. So, our Western cultures. So I love working with them. They're so heart open, so connected, so grateful. And they will be, the healers will be coming with us to this event and showing us this practice of despacho, which is to honor Mother Earth and to say thank you. And this helps to create the Ayne, the right relationship. So we'll be teaching this so that you can learn it for yourself, and that you can bring it home and practice it with your family or for yourself or in your neighborhood with your friends and start to restore some balance to the world. They'll be showing us this practice, and they'll also be doing it for us and with us. And they'll be doing some healing work on us too. And I'll personally one of my gifts is bringing in the ancestors. So I'll be bringing in the ancestors to have a little ancestral healing and some relief from maybe some of these repeating patterns that you might be experiencing. So that's basically what we're going to be experiencing, and that's a small dose of what I do in my programs all year long with the healers when we do the 1-year program.
Beautiful. And thank you so much, Kerri, to share this moment also with us and this experience and all your wisdom. We appreciate really that you have decided to be with us and to share, as I said at the beginning, this message to the world, and especially to families and to the next generations, because this is our motto also. We decided that it must be for the next generations that we do that. And thank you very much.
Yes. So if it was not a wonderful taste of what this event is about, go straight to the link below this video to get registered, because we can't wait to be there and share this space of healing with you and with these wonderful shamanic teachers of the Andes, because we actually come from very close. So it's beautiful to be able to also reconnect with our roots and share this space with you. So we can't wait. And
I'm excited.
We do also.
once again, thank you. It was already said, and we look forward to to seeing you very soon again. Thank you so much, Kerri.
Thank you,
Thank
Kerri.
you.
The Real Mother-Daughter Show by Marta and Alexandra brings inspiring stories that will enrich your heart and soul every single time.
Share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. Leave us your comments and subscribe to our channel today. Be the first one to take part in the conversation.
We are your hosts, Marta
And Alexandra,
mother and daughter in life and business,
Europe's leading communication experts for mothers and daughters,
international mentors and speakers, creators of the 7-step pathway to a bonding mother-daughter relationship.